Oh, and now we are live.
Okay.
All right. Hey
Yep.
guys, Wayne Fillmore here, and I'm here with Dr. Fiona Roberts, Dr. General Han Solo, Dr. Kent Hovind, and Robert and Yusuf.
Many doctors.
A lot of people today. First, I want to tell you guys what the topic of discussion is going to be about. We're going to be talking about what if the other side is correct. This discussion is going to go on for about 30 to 45 minutes, and if we have enough time after that to just prolong the discussion, we will. A little bit about myself. Right now I work for the school district as an assistant teacher. I'm an old earth creationist. However, I do hold to a lot of the young earth theology. I think they have a lot of good theological doctrine, like there was no death before sin, there was a global flood, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm an old earther off the evidence, but the theology is pretty good. So what I want you guys to do, if you can, is I want you guys to give a brief description about yourselves. You know, talk about what do you do, where you're from, stuff like that, and what your position is concerning. Are you an atheist? Are you a creationist? Are you an old earther, young earther? And let's start with Dr. Fiona.
Okay, right, first off, let me just say I've got terrible lag tonight. It's really bad lag, so be prepared. And I'm going to switch my camera off just in case. Right, so my position, well, I'm a Christian, I'm a Roman Catholic. My side, so to speak, is I accept evolution and I accept common descent. It doesn't make me any less of a Christian. I worked in science for years. I'm now retired. And that was in research and in teaching, mainly in bacterial physiology and molecular biology. And that's me. You want me to then? You want me to answer the question as well?
Oh, I was waiting for General to go. General, you still here?
Oh, right. Okay. No, I don't know who's next. So, do you want me to go next?
Yeah, go down the line from left to right.
And we get it in a different order on our screens.
You know what? We probably
Okay.
do. Because
I'm far right, so I thought Kent was next. But anyway, I'll go next. Yeah, so I work in the field of aeronautical engineering. I'm still a student at the same time. I also love all things theology and the voodoo side, quote unquote, of the ancient Near East. And yeah, I try and fit it all together in my belief as a Christian. I am an evolutionist, and I think I take the concordance approach that the Genesis account aligns well with evolution, and I think that's all I need to say.
oh, Kent, you can go next.
Yeah, I don't think everybody has the same order on the screen that you do, so you got to appoint people to go. Okay, my name's Ken Hovind. I taught high school science and math for 15 years, and I've been an evangelist teaching on creation versus evolution for the last 27 years. I take the position that the Bible is literally true and scientifically accurate, that the earth is 6,000 years old, roughly, and it is not millions of years old, and that God had to create it in 6 literal days, and he wrote that on a rock with his finger and handed it to Moses, saying, in 6 days I made heaven and earth, and the sea and all that in them is. So I think the biblical position is very clear that the earth is about 6,000 years old, which I don't take to be a young earth position. 6,000 is a long time. Now, usually when people say they're an old earther, they mean, billions of years, which I think is ludicrous. There's no possible way the universe can be that old for multiple scientific reasons. But I take the position the Bible is true, and the evolution theory being taught in our schools is got a whole bunch of lies to back it up, is not scientific. It is a religious worldview. I was interested, Fiona said, I accept evolution. That's an interesting phrase, as if it's obvious, everybody ought to accept this. No, and they call people like me evolution deniers, as if, how can you deny that? Well, that's a slanted way to make the argument, I think. I love science, and I think the scientific evidence is clear. This Earth cannot be billions of years old for all sorts of reasons, and the scientific evidence is abundantly clear that all animals produce after their kind. I agree there's common descent. All the dogs in the world had a common ancestor, and it was a dog. That does not mean dogs and bananas are related if we go back far enough. I think that is way outside the field of science and is flatly ridiculous. I mean, biologically and experientially, nobody ever sees that. It's a pure religion, which people are welcome to have, but they shouldn't call it science, and they shouldn't make everybody pay to put that in the school system. Okay?
All right. Next, Robertson, you can go. Oh, I'm sorry, Robert. I said Robertson. Robert.
Me? I was just the observer. Or do you mean Fiona?
Oh, I saw you on my screen. I didn't know because there's people in here who I didn't know was in here. So, Yusuf.
Yeah, I just wanted to listen to the conversation.
Yeah.
Okay.
You decide between Ken Roberts and myself.
Did you want me to go?
But Yusuf, if you want to join in, I don't mind. Yeah, you can go.
Okay. My name is Yusuf Altahir Reyes. I committed apostasy from Islam and became a Christian back in February of '01, and I joined the Eastern Orthodox Church. I ascribe to documentary hypothesis. I accept evolution, and I believe God was the prime force that created everything, and that something intervened in man. There's something special that happened with that, and that the main focus of the church and of everything is Christ, and must be Christ-centered, and that the Bible should not be read like straight through. Obviously, from having a Semitic background, Arab background, things like 40 means a lot. That's why it's not a contradiction to say when it says it rained 40 days and 40 nights, and then it says it rained, I think, like 135 days or something like that in the Noah's flood story. But I do ascribe to J, E, P, and D that, and I don't have a problem with people being creationists anywhere, as long as God did it. But I find more concern about Christological things like the Trinity, accepting of the councils and the creeds, as more pressing, because if God took 13 billion years or 6,000, I don't see the weight there, unless you're trying to push some atheist thing in, and that's my little thing.
Right.
I'm the dumb guy, by the way. I just have a history degree, and I'm also going back to school to go into medicine. So.
I know that position. I'm dumb, but I'm educated.
Yeah.
MMA, you can go next. Introduce yourself to the people watching.
Hello. I'm an atheist, the only atheist on this panel so far. God help me, excuse the pun. I'm an ex-Roman Catholic. I work in a clinical pathology lab through a diploma. I studied biomedicine at the University of Queensland. And obviously I also accept the evidence for evolution and the concordance within science on that. And that's what I have to say. Thank you.
All right. So first, I'm going to start with Fiona, and I know we're going to get into you guys are actually going to be talking about the other position, but first I want to talk about something that you guys are a little bit familiar with. So Fiona, I just want you to start with giving your best evidence for why you think your position is true, and then we'll go with General Kent in the same format we just went in.
Well, I would say that the reason that I hold the position I hold is because I've followed the scientific evidence. I don't think that there is anywhere in my system of belief that requires me to accept a literal 6-day creation or a young earth. And as I say, I've followed the scientific evidence. And the evidence for evolution and for common descent has been mounting for decades. And that's why I hold the position I hold. And the best evidence is to follow the evidence. That's what my position is based on. Now, if are you wanting specific evidence, that I would say when we look at using DNA sequences as tools, for example, in primer design, and we look at the similarities of conserved sequences between related species, and it works. And it wouldn't work otherwise.
All right, General, you next. What's the best evidence you have for your position?
Okay. Well, my evidence, if you can see my screen share, is not just the record of nature. I also take the record of Scripture. So I take what's called a deep book. You have the Word of God, and you also have the Book of Nature, which is also in our Belgic confession. It's a Reformation creed. So I would consider, Kent being a Protestant, he would consider the Belgic confession, where the universe is open to us like an elegant book. And it's amazing to see the relation between pretty much what we see in nature and what's mentioned in Genesis. It's a tight fit between the two records. Only a mind that's transcendent to the universe could reveal, or not only that, but engineer the text so that an ancient Israelite can understand the text in their primitive cosmology, which is a flat earth, solid dome, things like that, but can also, the same text in a 20th century context, I can look at, the record of nature as a physicist, and I can go, you know what, is there such a thing as the earliest isotopic evidence for life, for example, 3.8 billion years ago? Or what about the Earth's formation and the periods of its formation, the way it forms throughout these periods? Is it in line with the Scriptures? When does modern Homo sapiens, when did they appear? Is it late in this formation of the planet and life? Just this chart alone shows beautifully the order by which things have happened. And as Fiona just said, follow the evidence. And so Galileo was one of the first to basically refine how you interpret things. Basically, he said in a nutshell, make sure your point of reference is always refined. So from a geocentric context leading into a heliocentric context, notice that your frame of reference is being refined. And if the Scriptures are from God, I would expect the Scriptures to be flexible enough to allow for that refinement. If it's a man-made document, then it would only be a one-way street and nowhere else. So that's my piece of evidence for science and the aligning.
All right, Kent, you next. What is your best evidence that your position is true?
Well, I think there's overwhelming scientific evidence from multiple fields of science that the Earth simply cannot be billions of years old. If I told you my watch was 8,000 years old, it would be pretty simple to disprove that statement. You could say, hold it, they didn't have plastics until, after World War II, and they didn't have the computers until after 1985 or something like that. You could easily, I don't know when the watch was made, but it's not millions of years old. It's not thousands of years old. I could limit it down. Scientifically, I think it's fairly easy to limit down the age of the Earth to less than billions, probably in the order of a few thousand, maybe 10, 20, 30,000, just simply scientifically. Now, the Bible dates add up to 6,000, which I completely agree with, but I couldn't prove that scientifically. That would be more historical data. Now, as far as what some others have said here we are talking about a word we haven't even defined yet. What do you mean by evolution? And the atheists and agnostics hate my chart because it simplifies it down where everybody can get it. But I show the 6 different meanings of the word evolution. You have to have cosmic evolution, origin of time, space, matter. Then you have to have chemical evolution. All the elements have to evolve from hydrogen gas. We have no clue how that can happen. You can't make gold out of hydrogen gas. Then you have stellar evolution. The stars have to form. They've never seen a single star forming. All we see are stars blowing up. Then you have to have organic evolution. Life has to get started from somewhere. How did it start? And then macroevolution is changes between the kinds of animals. Different kinds, and I use the word kinds deliberately. Then lastly is microevolution, variations within the kind. So I accept evolution if you mean number 6. None of this is part of science. Neither Fiona nor anybody else has ever seen a dog produce a non-dog or a dog come from a non-dog, and you couldn't possibly use any fossils as evidence for this. Fossils are simply an animal that died. You couldn't prove it had any children, and you sure couldn't prove it had different children. And why would we think a bone we found in the dirt or rocks can do something that no animal today can do? Every farmer in the world, all through recorded human history, has counted on macroevolution not happening. Microevolution, they may raise cows that are better adapted to a certain kind of grass or hay, or better adapted to cold climate or warm climate, like the Brahma bull for the hot climate. No question, there's varieties of cows, and most have been capitalized on for economic gain for some farmer, but they're still a cow. It is pure dreamland. Somebody's smoking something if they believe cows and bananas are related if you go back far enough. They could welcome to believe that, but it's not science. So if you carefully define the word, I accept number 6. If that's what you mean by evolution, I accept it. If you mean this, number 5, I don't accept that. I would defy anybody to show me one shred of evidence. If there are similarities between the gene sequences of these different animals, that wouldn't prove relationship. And a freshman in the court of law could prove that wrong. That could prove a common designer, just as well as a common ancestor. But to take it as only evidence for common ancestor is not logical. It's not common sense. It's just that the Honda Prelude and the Honda Civic have thousands of similarities. They probably use the same cigarette lighter. I don't know. They might have the same windshield put in. That's because the same people are making them. Microsoft Word and Microsoft PowerPoint have thousands of identical lines of code. Identical. Well, that's because the same guys wrote the code. That's all. It's not proof for evolution. So we better carefully define what we're talking about. And one of the guys showed it, I forget, you didn't get the name down here, the geologic column. He bases the 6 days of creation on the geologic column. The geologic column does not exist any place on Earth except the textbooks and somebody's imagination. There is no geologic column. It doesn't exist. The Earth has layers, but they're not different ages. I show in my video number 4, all over the world, petrified trees are found standing up, connecting all these layers. How can anybody think they're millions of years different in age when the same tree connects them all? I think it's pure fantasy land. Okay?
Okay, Ken, can I ask a question?
All you want.
Or is someone wanting to say something? I don't know how this is going now. Like, we've said our introduction, we've laid out what we believe. Do we now have like a discussion?
I'll just throw something in.
Are you asking me a
Just
question?
put it out there.
If you're asking me, sure, discuss anything you want. I thought we're supposed to give an introduction and then state your position, and then I stated mine.
Okay, let Wayne speak.
Yeah. I guess because for everybody to go and to give their little spew, yeah, if you guys could make it to the point and make it sure. But another question, because I know if we go down the line with the same question, we're going to be here forever because you guys are never going to stop arguing. But what is the best evidence that you guys can think of? What's the most compelling evidence that you guys can think of for the other position, not your position, but the other position? And also, I want to introduce Christian Anarchist. He just came in. Christian Anarchist, say hi to everybody, and also state your position and give the most compelling evidence against your position.
All right. Well, I'm Christian Anarchist. Shalom Aleichem. I am a theistic evolutionist, as some would call me, but I personally prefer the term evolutionary creationist because, unlike some of my other co-equals on this matter, I do not believe that Adam and Eve came from anywhere within the evolution of the primates family in particular. I think we were distinct, unique creation. However, I do believe in the process of evolution for the animals, and I do believe the Earth is 4.5 billion years old, and the universe being around somewhere of 14 billion. However, for my position on the matter, as well, wait, I'm trying to remember the question. You said against my position, Wayne?
Yep, against your position. What's the most compelling evidence against your position?
Well, the only thing that I could think of that would be the most compelling thing is if you're taking the Bible at its most literal form of reading it, whether it be King James or NIV, ESV, NASB. If you're just going to read it at just a plain face value, that's the only way that you'll get it, I guess. But of course, even then, most Bible scholars that are very well educated and very well educated Christians who study the Bible make it their lifetime to study and make sure that they're understanding God's Word. By the way, if you're hearing some noise, that's the lawn men working around the yard a bit, so I'll try my best to speak louder than them. But, I mean, when you look at some of the verses, like you have some people, and I'm sure Kent Hovind has had a chance to deal with them, you've had the flat earthers that just go about reading the verses like in Genesis when it talks about the, what's that thing that they interpret to mean
The firmament?
Yeah, the firmament. They interpret that to mean the dome part of it, and if you don't take that literal, then you may as well believe in evolution and stuff like that.
They always use the same word. They say, well, we haven't gone past the Van Allen belts because if you went past the Van Allen belts, you would die. And I have a quote from James Van Allen himself, and the radiation you would get from passing the Van Allen belts is about 1%. That's about the same amount of radiation you get when you get an X-ray done, so it wouldn't kill you.
Right. So, but basically that's it. I mean, if you're gonna go with that, then if you're gonna go with saying that to me that being the most convincing thing you can try to find, then you may as well be, as Michael Heiser once said, if you're gonna take the Bible at a literal face value, then yeah, you're gonna get like a flat deal. But of course, you're gonna get a lot of other problems along with it that just are literal, but aren't meant to be taken as such.
I think I have a point that would argue for creationism. If you mind me interjecting, I don't know how this is supposed to be set up.
You guys can go and respond to each other and whatever, but yeah.
I would just want to add that in the early church, there were people like Basil the Great and Clement of Alexandria who actually, when arguing against the hyperliteralists, used creationism as an example, as if nobody would have believed it. They argue against that, but I think the most compelling thing that it shows that God created, I don't know what form of creationism though, is the absolute intricacy when we get into the cells and how everything came together. Like biogenesis is amazing, and I think God had a hand in that. because nothing living
Yusuf,
can come from non-living. Pardon me?
Yusuf, are you typing? Because there's a lot of clicking when you're...
Yeah, guys, mute your microphone when you're not talking, and then when you're talking, just, it's better.
Oh, sorry, yeah, I wasn't typing. I can even get off the line since I'm not a science guy, if you guys want to have that. But I think the more you look into just how humans are, and even animals, like, it does make me pause. I mean, I don't reject evolution or anything, but it does seem like it was too short of a period of time to get from, just 65 billion years to get from a rodent to a human being. And I think it was Gould that believed in these leaps. So I've never been a creationist, but every condition that we need for life, the molten metal core, the right distance from the sun, I mean, that's why I don't look down upon creationists, young Earth creationists, because the biological world and the physical world is amazing that we even exist. And I think everybody at some point in their life takes a pause and looks and sees how amazing things are. And there are the gaps in science, things we don't know yet, which some people say, well, you can't argue about the gaps, but I think that would be one point in favor of the creationists, even though I'm not one.
That's pretty honest. I can dig it, man. I can dig it. Fiona, what about you? What would be the most compelling evidence for the young Earth position? Or not even the young Earth position, a position where, like myself, I'm an old Earther, but I don't believe in common descent.
I think we say most compelling. I think it would have to be the creation account in Genesis. And remember, most compelling is a comparative term. That doesn't mean I'm calling the Genesis account compelling. It would be the most compelling that I can think about. Because I don't see where else you could get it from.
Well, I think you mean an English interpretation of the Genesis account.
Oh, like a plain reading of the text. Like if you guys ever go on Answers in Genesis, it says in one of their articles, we don't really need to read the Hebrew because we can read the English version, and anybody, can get the English version, and it's pretty clear that it was 6 little days, right? So, General, what will be?
Can I answer the question, Wayne? Yeah. So, from a science, the only thing that so far that has caused astronomers a little bit of difficulty, and by the way, as far as Big Bang cosmology is concerned, I can list at least 20 different proofs for the lambda CDM, the cold dark matter Big Bang model. But there's discovery of quasars 10 billion light years away that don't show time dilation, and so that is a mystery being looked into. So if you're wanting a legitimate scientific insight into what's going on here, it doesn't prove young Earth creationism. It's just one of those, how does the Big Bang model account for this? It seems a mystery at the moment. And as far as we're concerned, it's the instruments that are not sophisticated enough to measure the spectral distances of such quasars. The recent gravitational findings was a sort of like a background check of this mystery. Really, it confirms relativity and time dilation, and it also confirms gravity waves. Now the next step is I think it's the Keck-3 Institute that's going to not only do another study test on B-mode polarization, so that's the gravity waves that bend the light of the cosmic microwave background, but they will also look into these peculiar mysteries of distant quasars.
Are you talking about?
But otherwise,
or,
sorry?
Are you talking about gravitational lensing, where light can bend depending on on the mass of an object, or is that
Yeah, like
something else?
well, basically redshift. These quasars don't. It appears that these quasars don't show any redshift. So Kent would say something like, Big Bang is not fact, or something. Like obviously he goes against that. So here's if he was reading the scientific literature, here's an example of a peer-reviewed study done showcasing a mystery with these two particular quasars that don't show redshift. And so is it to do with the fact that they are legitimately not redshifting, or is it to do with our instruments? And basically it's tipping toward the instrument problem because of these other studies that have verified other parameters of the Big Bang model. And and then just finally, in regards to Fiona, what she said with the Genesis creation account, I would argue that the Genesis creation account, if Kent was to read it literally, he would have to be an ancient Near Eastern Israelite, believing in a flat Earth, solid dome, things like that. If he was to read it from a 21st century context, as well as allowing the flexibility of the language of the text to speak in our context, he would be basically like Fiona and myself. But he would never be a young Earth creationist either way. That's the point.
All right. Kent, how would you respond to that? And what's the most compelling evidence for the other side? How would you respond to that first off?
Kent, I think you're muted. There we go.
Did it work?
Yep, you're good.
Still shows the mute sign on mine. I missed 9 years of technology being in a I'm a little confused on this. Anyway, yeah, we covered about 20 or 30 different topics there. I can't respond to all of them, but I think the best evidence for the other side, for the evolution view, is if you define the word evolution to microevolution, there is enormous evidence that there are some wild variations that happen, like Alaska rabbits and Florida rabbits can no longer breed. Okay, that's interesting, and that's microevolution. There are 5 different varieties of giraffes. Nobody knows why. Maybe somebody did a study. Why the different patterns of the spots on the 5 giraffes? I don't know, but they're still a giraffe. So the evidence for microevolution is really pretty overwhelming. There is a lot of evidence that animals can produce some pretty bizarre offspring that can vary wildly. Who would think that broccoli and cauliflower and Brussels sprouts have a common ancestor? They do, and it was a plant. So that's, again, microevolution. So I am unaware. If somebody's got some, we offered $250,000 for years. A lawyer backed me up, had the money. For anybody with real evidence, scientific testable evidence for anything above the microevolution level. So far, there is none. I've never seen anybody other than they cite majority opinion or peer-reviewed. Some peer-reviewed article says it. Make it real simple. Where's the evidence, scientific evidence, that would prove anything above the what is commonly known as the microevolution level? And one of the guys, I forget who was talking, mentioned about that, so-and-so or something is 20 billion light years away. I taught trigonometry for years, and I would be very anxious to learn how on earth you could measure these distances. You certainly cannot do it with parallax trigonometry, since the base of the biggest triangle we can get would be our orbit around the sun, which is only 16 light minutes. Our orbit around the sun would be 16 light minutes diameter. The third point on your triangle at 1 light year is 8 1/3 miles away. That makes for a real skinny triangle. Take 16 inches and 8 1/3 miles, and you don't know that it's 8 1/3 miles. You're trying to calculate how far it is based only on the declination of your telescopes out of parallel. I'm going to say I think you'd have a hard time measuring 100 light years, and I think most astronomers would say, yeah, it gets really shaky. So to say 20 billion is just simply whistling in the dark. The stars might be that far away. I'm not denying that. I'm just pointing out that we little humans on this little Earth cannot possibly measure distances like that unless you throw in a whole bunch of very unprovable assumptions, which is not science now. So they may be, but even if they were billions of light years away, that is a distance. It's not a time. a billion light years is a distance. Like a Kent Hovind minute is how far can he run in a minute, which is decreasing year by year, by the way. But the fact is that's a distance, not a time. And so to say this star is 4 billion light years away, therefore it took 4 billion years to get here, is absolutely ridiculous logic. You'd have to assume the speed of light's always been the same in all places, in all through history. You can't know that. You'd have to assume you can measure the distance to the star to begin with, and you can't measure that distance. You can make up a number and then draw a conclusion based on your imaginary number if you'd like. We don't even know what light is, for heaven's sake. So I find that hard to believe that they can say this star is 20 billion light years away. Therefore, stop right there. You don't know that distance to that star, and we should quit pretending we do.
All right, we got a guy who wants to rational.
Okay.
Number one, respond before you do.
Yeah, we had an echo from Kent Hovind's, and I don't know what the heck was going on there, but I don't know, for some reason it's not working anymore. So, but we're good. Go ahead, Wayne.
Oh, rational. Introduce yourself, what you do, what your study is, your position, etc., and respond to that. Because I know you want to respond.
Okay. I'm Rational Mind. I'm an atheist. I'm doing a biology degree at the moment, and next year I'm going to do a master's in evolutionary biology. And I don't have much to say about what Kent just said about distances to stars and all that stuff, because I'm not a physicist. I don't know that much about it, but I do know that there's a lot more than trigonometry that goes into measuring distances to stars and other stellar bodies. So it's things like standard candles. By measuring the brightness of various stars, you can work out how far away they are with quite a lot of certainty. It's not just a matter of saying, oh, that's brighter, that means it's closer, that's dimmer, that means it's further away. It's very exact what they can do. And so it's not how Kenneth was saying it at all, basically.
Well, even though this is kind of off topic, but I know another way they measure the distances between stars is not just from parallax, but they use something called, I think it's called spectroscopy or spectra. I can't even say the word.
Spectrometer.
Spectroscopy.
Spectroscopy, talk about redshift, etc.
Yeah, and they basically they measure the wavelength of light, and as the wavelength of light keeps on stretching out, the color changes, and so they know from even different colors of the stars, because light is wave, or light is a photon, but it can act as a wave or particles. But as you keep on going out and looking out in the distances, that wavelength is being stretched, and we can't have different color stars if they're not really that distance, and so we can correlate the distance with the color, so we can do that too. But and then you can go next, respond to that, and I guess what is the best compelling evidence against your position?
The best compelling evidence against evolution. I honestly cannot think of one from the scientific literature. I've opened numerous tabs right now on different scientific journals and so forth on speciation, and I want to go down that path in evolution and medicine. So it's going to be very hard to provide evidence against the current position in science. But I would say creationism would be the only if you can call it a hypothesis, not a theory, that could, I can't even say it can rival it, it can't, but in terms of the numbers of what people believe, then sure. To respond to what Mr. Kent has said, macro, micro, and evolution are very well defined. Right next to me, I actually have the Oxford Dictionary of Biology, the 2015 edition, and so this goes specifically of terms and things within biology, and again, it's from Oxford University Press, so it is up to date as of 2015. And I could read the section on macro and microevolution, but it is quite long. So all I want to say is that it is very well defined. Macro is anything above the species level, and micro is anything below. And since I have papers lined up on speciation, I can, show that. I can also show it in bacteria and so forth, and pathogens. So that's my piece. I don't want to touch stars or anything cosmology. I haven't covered that in many years. So.
All right. Another question for you guys, but one thing before I do ask the question, just remember, guys, stay on topic. The topic actually is what if the other side is right, not what if the other side is wrong. What if the other side is correct? Another really good question I have for you guys is, what are the theological implications if your opponent's worldview is correct? So I know maybe the atheists don't want to talk about the theology behind it. You guys could just talk about like the philosophy or morality behind it. But starting with Fiona, because I know we just heard from Christian Nanark not too long ago. Fiona's been pretty quiet. Fiona, what are the theological implications if God really did make it all in 6 literal days? Does it have a bearing on theology?
Good going back.
No, Fiona's. Do you think I should answer before Fiona answers?
Oh, here she goes. Here she goes.
Oh no, she's back. Okay, that's cool.
Fiona, you're muted.
Okay, sorry about that. My connection dropped again. That's twice it's done it. Right, so what are the theological implications if the other side is right? So, again, just to emphasize, my side needs to be defined to work out what the other side is. As I say, I'm a Christian. I accept evolution. I accept common descent. I take the other side to be young earth creationism. Because, I mean, obviously I believed in an old earth. So to go completely to the other side, be young earth creationism. Theological implications of that, for me, there are none for me. And the reason is because I don't believe that young earth creationism is a salvation issue. So, obviously, my faith does not depend on young earth creationism in any way, shape or form. If it turned out that young earth creationism was right, it still wouldn't actually change my faith in Christ in any way, shape or form. It wouldn't make any difference.
Amen. All right, Jenna, you want to go next?
As I say, I'm sticking to, as you asked, just the theological implications.
So Wayne, what's the question? Can you repeat the question again?
What are the theological implications if the other worldview is correct?
Okay. Well, in light of so this is when I introduced myself and I explained my position. I was very clear in saying, if there is a God, then he has to be consistent in both of his revelations. So if nature shows us one thing, but if the scriptures shows us another thing, then theologically God is nothing but like the Gnostics' God. So he's a deceptive God. It could border on a salvation issue. That's a gray area. That's a gray debate. In that, with respect to that question, because here we have genuine people who are basically lying, are being deceived, and at the end of the day, what about those people who left Christianity because nature told them that the universe is old, but supposedly the actual truth was the universe is young. Now you have people leaving the faith because God has deceived them, ultimately. So that there's a lot of thorny issues theologically, but thankfully that's not the case, because the Bible doesn't teach younger creationism, and it's consistent with the record of nature.
Well, let me go to Kim, but before I do, I just want to say that I was a younger creationist, then I went over to older creationism. I think that a lot of the theology in the younger creationism is true, but as far as the evidence, like Fiona said, it doesn't have any bearing on my faith. Um, and Jim, what you just said, yeah, the record of nature coincides with the Bible. I would agree with you. And I don't think the Bible teaches an old earth or a young earth. I think it's silent on that matter. But when we look at the evidence, we can put together a forensic picture of, or a timeline per se, of when these things actually happen. Can't You can go next. What are the theological implications if the other position is correct?
Well, I think it's catastrophic. If evolution is true, we have no way to tell right from wrong on any topic. It brings society into complete chaos. There's no such thing as right or wrong. If evolution is true, it's just pure random chance, and the strongest survive, and if I can beat you up and take away your stuff, okay, that's fine. So I think all society would break down if it were true, or if people believed it was true, which is the case now. Many people believe evolution is true, therefore they have no absolute standard to live by. There is no absolute, thus saith the Lord. I've asked evolutionists many times, and I'll ask anybody on this panel, if the real entire theory of evolution is true, if all 6 meanings are true, we came from a Big Bang 20 billion years ago, or 17.955, whatever the number they're using now. If that's true, how do you tell right from wrong? Is abortion right or wrong? Is premarital sex right or wrong? Is sex with your dog right or wrong? Is sex with your 2-year-old child right or wrong? Is anything right or wrong? And if you say, yes, that's wrong, how did you decide that? Is there a universal standard, or does everybody just decide for themselves what they think is right or wrong? In which case, Hitler decided, let's kill everybody we feel like we should kill, and he did what he did. With natural outcropping of evolution theory is something similar, complete chaos in society. So if the other side is true, the theological implications are drastically evil, in my humble, totally unbiased opinion. And as far as the Bible not teaching young earth, I completely disagree. Jesus twice said the creation of Adam was the beginning. For Mark 10:6, God wrote on a rock with his finger in Exodus 20 and gave it to Moses in Exodus 31, and many times refers to the 10 Commandments, where God said very clearly he created everything in, and that's why they rest the 7th day. He wasn't telling them to work 6 million years and rest 1 million. It's obvious to anybody with a day. So the Bible does teach young earth creation, which doesn't make it true, but that's what it teaches. And so if the evolution theory is true, we are in royal trouble. And I think just the fact that so many people believe it's true is causing chaos on the planet, which is the purpose of our ministry at drdino.com. We want to straighten everybody out and get them all to believe the Bible.
All right, who'd like to respond to that?
Okay. Well, first thing I want to say is really, if you think that believing evolution or teaching of evolution or stuff like that is so harmful to society, why is it that the sort of most either secular or atheist or just generally sort of accepting science, things like the Nordic countries, why that most of them accept evolution, but they have some of the most peaceful, sort of organized, fine societies in the world? And I'll let you address that. But second thing is, if you say that evolution is harmful and all that stuff, if you found out tomorrow that evolution was true, if you got revelation from God and he said you're wrong about all that stuff, it's actually evolution is true, would you then lose all your morality? Would you then just run around the streets killing and raping and just doing whatever you wanted?
If you're asking if I would personally, no. I think there's absolutely no evidence that macroevolution or anything above that is true. And I'm not saying people can't be ethical and have their own personal ethics, but what is the basis of morality? Is there a standard? 2-year-old daughter, wrong. And if it's wrong, why is it wrong?
But can I just say that it sounds...
Let me just say this, and I'm the moderator saying this. On macroevolution, if you go to Concepts of Biology, that's the textbook I always use. Any of the Concepts of Biology textbooks, I use edition 2007. And they even have, I think they have up to 2016 now. The definition of macroevolution from a textbook, from a standard textbook today, is macroevolution is a change in an allele frequency over it's a large change in an allele frequency over a large period of time, and we do have an example of macroevolution. We have something called speciation, where if you go on evolution.berkeley.com, I don't agree with everything Berkeley teaches, but they're right on speciation. They teach that a species is anything within a family or genus that can interbreed. And once it gives birth to anything else that cannot interbreed, that would be considered a new species. So a dog that gives birth to another dog that can't interbreed with the old species, that would be considered a new species, which would be considered a big change, which would be considered macroevolution. So that would be one evidence for macroevolution. Anybody else want to respond?
I would like to ask Dr. Hovind a question, if I may. If God, let's say that day just meant age, as most of us believe, that God created the world ex nihilo and used the process of evolution, would morality still go out the window?
I don't know if I got that question right. I don't think anybody answered my simple question: is sex with your 2-year-old daughter right or wrong? And how do you tell if it's right or wrong?
Because Christ came incarnate, delivered us. We have the first of all, we have we're made in the image and likeness of God.
Right.
So we, as Paul says, even the law was given to the Jews, and even the natural universe bears witness to the pagans. So nobody has an excuse to not believe in God. That's just what Paul had said.
Right.
But it's been revealed. We've had the prophets, and then we've had Christ, and we had his church established, and it's pretty firm with the Ten Commandments and the teachings of Christ. I don't see how that would all go out the window.
Can I ask him?
Evolution.
I still just want a real simple answer. Is sex with your 2-year-old daughter right or wrong? And if it's wrong, why? If it's wrong, why not?
It's wrong because it's evil.
All right, hold on.
Why?
Let me ask.
Let
me answer. Okay, so yes, having sex with the dog is wrong.
Why?
And why? Why is because that it is stated, it is from our, not just our own moral understandings of it, which the Bible tells us we're moral, rational creatures, we're able to come to that conclusion rationally, but the Bible even forbids this.
So there is a moral standard. The Bible says it's wrong, therefore it's wrong. What does the evolutionist say about that? Why would it be wrong? And forget the dog. I mean, though that's one of the questions. What about your neighbor's 2-year-old daughter? You're babysitting your neighbor's 2-year-old daughter, and you want to have sex with the 2-year-old daughter. Would that be right or wrong? And if it's wrong, why? From an evolutionist. Tell me why, please.
It would be wrong.
I think you're confusing nihilism.
Hold on. It would be wrong because it would do intense harm, which the Bible tells us not to do. That's clearly mentioned in the teachings of Jesus.
Please say something here.
Go ahead.
What I'd like to say here is that this question that was asked was the theological implications of the other side being right. Now, the other side Kent took to be evolution. But you don't have to throw out the whole Bible. And I don't know why he's making that assumption. And yes, it would be wrong to have sex with your 2-year-old daughter for the simple reason that let me finish and don't interrupt. For the simple fact that a 2-year-old child cannot give informed consent. That is why. As adults, we are supposed to look after the children, and we do what is right for the children. And in accepting evolution, we do not throw out the entirety of the Bible. In accepting evolution, we do not become atheists, and having said that, atheists are able to also answer the question about having sex with a 2-year-old daughter. So this question is taking this entire thing off topic. The question was, what are the theological implications of the other side being right. Now, I answered it from my perspective. It has no theological implications for me. It doesn't affect my faith. If young earth creationism is right, it doesn't affect my faith at all. My faith stays the same.
Yeah, because you have a Christ-centered faith.
Right, and that's the question that's been asked of you, Kent. What are the theological implications for you if the other side is right? What happens to your faith if it turned out the evolution was correct, or the earth was old? If you became completely convinced that evolution happened, or that the earth is old, what does that do to your faith? There's theological implications, not morality.
That's the point of the question. Yeah. So Ken, if the Bible does teach evolution, and if nature basically shows evolution, how would you personally respond to that?
Well, what if we discovered 2 + 2 is 5? How would I respond to that? It's not 5. It's 4. This whole line of conversation is dumb. It's not true. Nobody's ever, and that you guys, even Wayne.
But Ken, guess what? 1 + 1 = 1 as well, mathematically.
I understand.
I mean,
but Wayne,
this is a topic.
Wait, hold on. Let Kent finish at least. I at least want to hear what he's going to say on
Wayne
this.
even changed the definition here. Both of you have used the word species. I never used the word species.
Yeah.
The dogs that are now no longer able to interbreed are still a dog. That's the same kind of animal. Quit changing the terms, okay? The Bible says they bring forth after their kind, not species. And it is a biological fact that our modern biology books, here's a 2015 edition, they teach that dogs and wolves are a different species, and so are foxes and coyotes. They're different species by our modern classification. I agree. We have called them a Canis lupus, Canis domesticus, Canis coyotes, etc. They're still the same kind of animal. They're a dog.
Can I?
4-year-old knows that.
Can I ask Ken a question? I want to ask Ken a question.
No,
all right.
One moment. Hold on. So we still have to get
this. Well, yeah, okay. But I just want to ask Kent this question, and then you guys can go on to the next question. So, the Hebrew for kind, translated kind in the King James, is min, and the Greek, using the Greek Septuagint, is genos. Both mean species, especially when Paul uses genos with respect to tongues in his letter to the Corinthians. So just as you have, quote unquote, an evolution of the languages throughout human history from the Paleolithic onward, well, actually, Paleolithic didn't even have languages. It was pretty much Ugaritic, and just beyond that, Sumerian were the start of iconographical cuneiform language. That you have an evolution of that. So why then does the Genesis text use words that basically an evolutionist would agree with, both in the Hebrew and Greek context?
Even the examples that were given here, the varieties of bacteria or varieties of dogs, it's still, a 5-year-old will tell you it's the same kind. Does the evidence given before for what Wayne said about the change in gene allele frequency to cause them no longer to be interfertile, to say 2 different dogs are no longer interfertile, does that therefore become evidence that dogs and roses are related if we go back far enough?
Well, I'm not an evolutionist. I do believe that evolutionary biology, as in like you say, there are changes, and the changes have limits, and that would be defined as evolution.
Then if that's what you mean by evolution, we're talking about number 6, and I agree with you. But that does not have any evidence. It doesn't offer a single shred of evidence for any of these first 5. And this is what they want us to believe and pay to teach our kids in the next generation at taxpayer expense. Big Bang, cosmic evolution. The fact that you got varieties of allele frequency changes that make infertile varieties of dogs, species of dogs that are now new species by somebody's classification, that doesn't prove the Big Bang or life from non-life, or even dogs and roses being related if we go back billions or trillions or quadrillions of years. That is not, it's just plain silly to believe such a thing. It's not part of science.
If I may jump if I may jump in for a minute, I think the question was, what are the implications, the theological implications if the other side was right? Not, is there evidence for evolution? Oh my God, my ears are plugged.
Yeah, so that's the question. Now, Mr. Kent, could you still hypothetically answer the question? Was it still technically on you, this question? Then I'll go to myself and who else hasn't answered on what is the theological implications if the other side was right. So,
As I
Mr.
said,
Kent.
the theological implications, if the other side is right, is a complete breakdown in any absolute standard for morality or ethics or right and wrong. The implications for me would be build a fence around the house and get a bunch of guns, because everybody does that which is right in their own eyes. It's a good thing we've got some semblance of civility in our civilization, where you have someone to enforce their ideas of right and wrong on other people. What if there weren't any police force, and if there weren't any military, and if there weren't any courts and laws and judges, and every man simply did what they thought was right? Evolution, if they all believed in evolution, then there's absolutely no. Does the lion feel bad when he kills the zebra colt and eats it? No, he doesn't feel bad at all. And would a person who's a thorough believer in evolution, there's no God to account to, there's no such thing as right and wrong. Is it wrong for them to have sex with their 2-year-old? No, it gratified them. 2-year-old doesn't have to consent. Do they consent when you tell them to go to bed, or tell them when you got to eat breakfast or got to take a bath? I mean, come on, what's the difference? Where's the absolute standard?
Hold on, if I can.
Well, wait, you guys, because we still have more
Can I
questions.
take the question?
Wait, hold on. Let Wayne go. This is his room.
We still have more questions to tackle besides this. I know everybody's getting on this one, but we got a lot more questions to go through that you guys are going to like. So, actually, number 2. Secondly, Anais, is that how you pronounce your name? You're muted right now. I want to introduce you to the room, or I want you to introduce yourself to the room.
Hello, my name is, as it's pronounced, Anase Skyrider.
There you go.
That is, of course, not my real name. It is just an internet pseudonym that I like to go with.
Right, so the Muslim won't go and kill you if you convert. So what is your position?
Okay, so I'm an agnostic atheist. Does anyone want me to define that in more detail?
That's going to take like 5 hours.
Okay.
All right, so I have another question. Let's just go to the other question, or this is more of a statement, I guess. But I want you guys to quickly, briefly, tell me what your model of creation teaches. Like, for example, I'm an older creationist, so I believe the universe goes back to 14.6 billion years old. Not in the same way that evolutionists do, but that's what my timeline or my creation model would teach. I want you guys to quickly just go over, what your creation model teaches in time, like, 14.6 billion years ago, the Big Bang happened, and 4.6 billion years ago, the Earth cooled off, et cetera, et cetera. And when you're done doing that, really quickly, I want you guys to rip your creation model apart. Pardon my voice, I have a little cold. So state your creation model and rip it apart.
Okay, and just before we do that, Wayne, can you type out the order in which you see on the panel, and we'll go by your order. I'll then write that down, and then we can keep to who can answer formally, and so we're not begging for each other to have a go to respond. So,
I have a quick question. When you were saying creation model, I wasn't exactly sure what you were getting at, because the implication is that it was created, but the question isn't applied to everyone who is a theist in this room. So I was
even atheists believe the world was created. You may not believe a God did it, but the universe had a beginning, right?
Created implies like intent or whatever, rather than just like results or something. So,
Anase, just to clarify.
What?
Just to clarify, Nase. Well, hang on a second. Just to clarify, it was meant to be between Fiona, myself, Kent, and a guy named Russ Miller. But you guys have joined it, which is fine.
Okay.
So technically, that's devoted to Christians, really. But
okay,
yeah.
then.
Anyway.
I don't think I could participate in this question. I mean, I could come up with counter arguments, but nothing I would think is valid. So I'll stay out of this one. I'll go ahead and mute myself.
All right. So MMA, I see all the way to the left of me. Anase, right? That's how you pronounce your name. Am I saying it right?
Nase is how you say it. Just so you know.
All right. Yeah, that guy. Then we have Christian Anarchist. Then we have Fiona. Then we have Han Solo. Then we have Isaiah. Then we have Kent. Then we have, of course, MMA. Then we have Rational Mind. Then we have Yusuf. And then we have myself. And if you need me to go back over that, I'll do it.
Do you need me to bow out? Do you need people to like clear the room so it can be more of a concise talk?
I mean,
It was originally supposed to be 4 people, because I think Fiona and Han Solo would represent the exact creation belief that I have, that God was the prime mover and it was a spark in human beings. I guess I'll bow out of this conversation. Peace to all you guys. It was nice meeting you, Dr. Hovind. And you guys take it easy.
All right,
Have a good time, Yusuf.
All right, MMA, you got that down?
Yeah, it's pretty much identical to me, except I'm after Kent, and then Rational's next after me. So.
All right, cool. All right, so give out your creation model or your model of the beginning of the universe, or et cetera, really quickly, like really briefly, in like 45 seconds, and then I want you to rip your model apart. And the reason why I'm asking this is because this is actually how I came to Old Earth creationism. I met with a friend of Neil deGrasse Tyson. His name is Peter. He's a evolutionary biologist like Fiona, and he said, Wayne, if you want to know the truth about science, et cetera, look at your model and look at all the good things about your model, and then try and rip it apart. And if it still stands after that, it's true. If it doesn't stand, well, then you've got a problem and you got to make a new model. So that's why I'm asking you guys that, to see if you guys can see for yourselves the holes that are in your models. So let's start with you, Anase. I still don't even know if I'm saying your name right. I need like one of those Google Siri pronunciation things. But let's start with you and then work our way all the way to the right.
Okay, so am I supposed to present like my current belief model about the universe and then come up with like holes in them that would need to be tested, or?
Bingo, you got it right. But just make sure you do it quickly, because I got a couple more questions and then I'll let everybody.
Okay, so as far as I understand it, okay, so Age of the Universe, I don't know the exact science that goes into that, so instead I'll go with Age of the Earth, because I know that has to do with radiometric dating. You would have to demonstrate that radiometric dating is inaccurate. Some people will say that it only goes to like 10,000 years or something, but there are other forms other than some form of carbon.
40,000.
What?
40,000.
Oh yeah. Okay, sorry. So some numbers. So there would have to be a demonstration of the inaccuracies. I know that there are places where it doesn't apply, like carbon dating can't be used in certain circumstances because of stuff like the reservoir effect. As for evolution, origins of species and all that, I can't come up with anything off the top of my head, so I'll have to bow out of that detail. So I don't want to take too much time, so I'll kind of. This is about as far as I can go without spending too much time thinking about it, wasting everyone's time. So I'll let other people answer, and I'll just kind of move on from here.
All right, Fiona, and then General, then Isaiah, and hi. What came? Hold on for a minute.
Okay. Well, for myself, my belief is that God put the basic laws of physics in place, lit the blue touch paper, and everything unfolded from there. Because the basic laws of physics dictate what happens in chemistry, which dictates what happens in biology. And I believe that he did have the path that he wished that to take in mind when he put those basic laws of physics in place. So that's my creation model, because I do believe that God is the creator of all. However, let's rip it apart. It's a belief. That's a belief. I've got no evidence to support it whatsoever. It is faith and faith alone. And I can't test it, which makes it unfalsifiable. So it can't be claimed as a scientific position. So all I can claim for it is that I am accepting that on faith and faith alone, and not on any evidence at all. But that's my creation model for the creation of everything.
And Amen.
And I think I've ripped it apart quite well.
All right, General, let's go with you next. Then Isaiah, then Kent.
All right, so I appreciate the scientific insights that Fiona provides, because I'm pretty much in the same book, except I disagree in the sense of it being a blind faith. Well, I don't know if Fiona meant a blind faith, but to me personally, it came like that. And I'm going out on a limb to say that the God question is testable, because here we have a document that was ultimately used by Christ himself. I mean, Kent said that Jesus quotes from Genesis. The most efficient way for God to reveal himself would be basically the incarnation. If the incarnation didn't happen, then you don't know that. Then you would be in Fiona's position. Then you would. It would be a non-falsifiable. Does God exist? Well, you can't really test it. So when I look at Genesis 1, with respect to my model, I see Big Bang cosmology, and pretty much all the parameters of what it means to have the lambda CDM work, the four fundamental laws of nature, how that comes into being, how the universe expands through hyperinflation, how you have protostars forming, and then finally our solar system within our local group, and then the sun, the moon, the stars, and all that, and then finally the Earth. And the way the words are positioned, so like in verse 2 you have the Hadean period where the Hebrew words tohu or bohu basically communicates that, which then leads the text telescopes into just after the Hadean period, where the planet becomes a water world, but it's dark on the surface, and that's exactly what we see by the metallicity of distant newly forming planets, where the atmosphere will be several hundred times thicker than, say, our current atmosphere. And that's why it's dark on the surface. And then you have this notion of God hovering over the waters, and as science suggests, through hydrothermal vents, you have unicellular life coming about. And people like Ephraim the Syrian and in the early church saw this hovering, which the Hebrew word is rahab, to communicate an incubation, that life is being generated. And so through that life being generated and the carbonate silicate cycle that then proceeds from that, the atmosphere is transformed, and this particular life form is photosynthetic. And so notice the text says, let there be light. In the Hebrew, it doesn't mean light was created, it let there be light. So the sun, moon, stars are already there. It's just that now the sun can, it's like a cloudy day. And then as you read the text onward, I won't go through the whole thing, but you have this beautiful exposition chronologically, exactly matching the model we have of how from opaqueness to translucence to transparency, the atmosphere changes, the water cycle that takes place, the way the land mass distribution takes place. Finally, in verse 20, you have very precisely, it says, from the waters, from water life, you get reptilian life, and then you get bird life. And then a patristic writer, Basil the Great, asked the question, since when do fish and birds are related? Since when are they related? And he tried to explain it that since they both cut through a fluid, so birds through the air and fish through the water, that they are of one family. Well, guess what? Fiona would look at that as saying, yeah, that is a monophyletic pedigree right there. So in the text, you have humanity coming from stardust, the dust of the ground. Ken Hovind says, it rained for millions of years on the rocks, and the rock became alive. Well, guess what? Read Genesis 6, where it speaks about humans, animals, everything that is organic came from the rock. That's exactly what evolution teaches. So that's my model. I take a two-book view. I look at nature. It's consistent with the book of Scripture. Jesus is the ultimate logos of everything, and so that's why I'm a Christian.
General, I just want to ask, do you just confirm what Kent Hovind has been saying in Seminar 1 about what evolutionists believe about the rock thing? Because I always heard, oh, that's a
Yeah,
straw man.
I use that. I use that as a tongue in cheek because I know he uses that many times in his debates and seminars, and so that's actually a tongue in cheek poke at the fact that the text actually does say that out of the rock came life, and so because eretz literally means that rock, earth, and so humanity came from that.
All right, Isaiah, you can go next. Then Kent, remember, guys, just keep it a little short so we can get to the next question.
Really quick. After the last person goes, I would like to go next because I have something else to add on to what I said before based on something Fiona said. I am now done talking. I will mute myself.
All right, cool.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so I don't know if it's, I don't really like to define it as a creation model, but I'll go with it. I mean, personally, I would say the
Hey,
evidence
could you do something about the wind in your microphone if possible? It's kind of loud.
He can't. He's outside right now. It's cool though. It's cool.
Is that better?
That is a lot
Somewhat,
better.
yes.
Alright, is that better? Does that work? Hello?
Yeah, that's
yeah.
better.
Alright, I wouldn't say it's a creation model, but I would say that the evidence is consistent with the African origins of humans around 200,000 years ago. If that's basically it.
Can you at least do like a critique and try and rip that apart to the best of your ability?
My critique of that would be counter evidence of say origins of humans in other geographic locations in other time periods. I would say that would form a problem.
All right, Kent, you can go next.
Kent
He's
Hovind,
muted.
you're muted.
You're
unmuted.
Okay, good. Yeah, I have a conflict in schedule. I have to go in just a few minutes, so I thought it was going to be a 30-minute program, and it's been over an hour now. But as far as Genesis teaching we came from a rock, and therefore being compatible with evolution, that is extremely silly. Genesis says we came from a rock with God doing it. That's like saying my car came from the dirt. Well, yeah, it did. All the iron was mined out of the ground, but it didn't mine itself and turn itself into fenders and bumpers and pistons. It's intelligently designed. It's so silly to compare those two. Yes, we came from a rock with a designer taking the dust and making man. And if you want to believe otherwise, you can believe that, but it's not science. It's nonsense. The biggest hole in the creation model, which I think is what the question we're supposed to be discussing, is very simple. It involves a God. I don't have any idea where God came from, what sustains him, all that kind of stuff. I believe by faith God created the heaven and the earth. So that is, but see, I admit mine is a religion. I don't think you'll find an evolutionist on this panel or any place on the planet to admit that their theory is a religion. They want to pretend it's part of science, and they want to get everybody to pay for it in the science textbooks when it's purely a religion, which is what I said. Macroevolution or cosmic evolution or chemical or stellar or even organic evolution coming, non-living rocks coming alive, you can believe that all day long, but it's religious upside down here. It's religious. It's not science. Quit pretending it is. Just admit, I believe in it. I heard the words used earlier, I accept it or I deny it. No, it's a religion you believe in or you don't believe in, and just quit hiding behind big fancy words. If you want to believe you came from a rock with no designer, fine. Believe what you want. You can believe in the Tooth Fairy and Santa Claus too. But it's not science. Science is things we can observe, study, test. Nobody sees a dog turn into a non-dog, and nobody sees a dog turn into a non-dog. Anyway,
I'm sorry, but nobody else is using this to attack other people's positions.
I have a conflict.
We're just trying to answer questions.
Go to 2peter3.com or bigdino, drdino.com.
Okay, Ken,
every day.
this is not a question, Ken. Kent, this is another question. Can
No.
I
have
offer a debate challenge later,
No, I
sometime
cannot.
later?
Sorry, I have to go. I'm sorry. Okay.
That sucks because I
Yeah.
really
Yeah,
wanted
do
to
you
know how he
why that?
defined
No,
the.
no. I want to say something here. Shut it, Josiah.
Okay.
I want to say something here.
Not going to talk.
We have all tried to.
Oh, you've been muted, Fiona.
Josiah, that's immature.
Josiah,
Yeah,
why did you mute me?
Just kick Josiah out. Okay, good.
Right. We all stuck to the questions asked. And we were trying to argue the other side. So we are trying to argue against our own position. And Kent, all he did was argue against our position. He never even tried to actually participate in this hangout. And we put up with quite a lot of ad hominem attacks from him about it being imaginary and all the rest of it. Now, I stuck to answering the questions. There was a lot more I could have said if I'd been prepared to wander off topic. But I stuck to the questions. And everybody else tried to do that as well, and he didn't. And not once was he actually pulled up and told to deal with the question. And then after advertising his drdino.com, he just unceremoniously leaves.
As per usual.
So I'm sorry, but this hangout has been an absolute travesty.
I would have loved for this to have gone further. I wish I could have joined earlier instead of so late. I would have loved to have participated in this. Like I could have mentioned some weaknesses in the way that I form my beliefs because I'm a layman, not an actual scientist.
Well, I
Yes,
was gonna.
I would have loved to have been
gonna.
honest and talked about that.
I was
the
gonna ask a
weaknesses.
question about. I was gonna ask a question about where he got that rock for all light comes from a rock. But thanks, man, for muting me. Fuck you, by the way.
I was gonna ask what he defines as a religion too, because I've heard him say this a lot, and I really wanted to know what he means when he says
but
that.
what I find more distasteful is the fact that this jerk off wants to complain about taxes when the very reason,
No, Wolf, don't even go there.
It doesn't matter. He's gone.
Yeah.
No, but don't even go there. Don't even go there. You will notice that every single time he was supposedly trying to ask a question, he couldn't even get his head around the fact that there are people who are Christians that accept evolution.
Sounds like he could have a fun time talking with Ken Ham.
Yeah, all of this stuff about morality was a complete red herring. What are the theological implications if the other side is right? The other side isn't atheists in this discussion. That was never what it was set up as, atheists being the other side. And yet, according to him, the other side is throwing out the entirety of Scripture. He should have been pulled up on that because it was one red herring after another, one straw man after another.
I'm definitely gonna have to watch the rest of this debate before I came in, since I wouldn't have picked up on that because I haven't been here too long.
Well, I just want to say something. It's no fault of Wayne actually, but in a way, it was technically meant to be between Fiona, myself, Kent, and a guy named Russ, and I think. Like I like the way it turned out, but I think I know me because I like to debate the topic, but we could have probably cornered Kent more specifically because everyone had to have everyone wanted to have a go, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just
we were taking turns, and I mean,
but you see Wayne. Yeah, but you see Wayne. Like remember last time when I debated him in that 25-minute. Debate. You see, what I fear is that he will take a very long time then to have another debate, because I want to have. That's why I offered him a debate challenge, but he just left. I want to have a real nitty-gritty meaty debate. And basically for everyone to see firsthand that here, me being a Christian, that at least to the atheist community, his position is absolutely not biblical at all, like let alone scientifically. So yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised at how blatant what he did was. Thought he would be a bit more subtle about it.
I wish I could be in more hangouts like these. I've started getting in a lot more people's hangouts, and it's always a blast. Should I mention? There's some arguing in the background. I'm sorry. Hang on a second.
And some of us still didn't even get to answer the question of the theological implications.
Yeah.
Like myself, there was rational. I think as I didn't get to answer that one as well.
Okay, I'm back.
That's because he went completely off on his red herring.
Yeah.
And went on about morality.
Yeah.
And he was
And then
talking
people
about
had
the whole of the Bible being thrown out. We were only discussing the age of the earth or evolution, and nothing about throwing the whole Bible out.
Exactly. And then, of course, naturally, everyone wants to throw in their piece. So when if
I still want to throw in my piece a little bit.
Yeah, well, I'm going to leave. I'm dropping out. JD Kane would like the link, by the way.
Huh?
JD Kane would like the link.
Yeah, if they can fit in, they can get in. We have enough room. I don't have a problem with that. I'm actually about to go off here,
10 minutes ago.
Yeah.
I would love to be in more hangouts like these, and I thought it was especially cool for Ken Hovind to be in this hangout. I didn't know he really did stuff like this. I thought I could have maybe added some stuff. I mean, I'm practically a high schooler. I say practically because I actually attend GED classes, and I thought that maybe I could offer at least a little bit of something in conversations like these. I won't have anything technical, but the layman side I think would be interesting. Like I was going to say, because of some stuff Fiona said, is because of the mere fact that I'm a high schooler, the flaws in my positions is simply that my education, or rather my understanding of reality, much more heavily relies on testimony. At least with scientists, they have the first-hand observation and confirmation of the stuff they learned in schools in the specific field that they're studying in or that they're working in or whatever. Whereas mine is much more heavily on the testimony side. That would be my thing, is that, I have to reference, here's what the scientists have reported, here's what the journals have reviewed and say is good or whatever, and I can look at that and with my little understanding be like, okay, yeah, that so-and-so experiments are okay and blah, 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 with my very non-technical understanding of the information. That would be my flaws. Those would be my issues, and I thought, that would be something interesting I could bring. But every time as I'm listening, or as you guys are saying, he kept red herrings and throwing off the topic to other stuff, and it kept making me want to get involved in there and challenge that. But I thought, okay, no, just kind of hold my tongue because that's not what the topic is about.
Exactly. I mean, that was the thing. When you try and answer the question and you try and do it succinctly, because there are so many other people in the room, to then have your answer attacked by somebody further down the line. So rather than answering the question, they're responding to what you have said. Mm-hmm. Now, given the order that we were going in, it's alphabetical. I was always going to go before Ken. So I'm not going to get any chance to respond. Whereas that's all he did, is not answer the question that was actually asked, and instead attack the answers that other people had given.
Perhaps maybe we should go based on age. I would always go last in that case.
But I must admit, it didn't. That really did not work for me. JD's here, by the way. You said I could give him the link. He needs broadcast. But yeah, I mean, I just found that basically all we did was we tried to look at the other side of it. He looked only at his own side, basically, So there were no challenges to him, but all he did was challenge everybody else. And we couldn't challenge him because we were, with integrity, trying to stick on topic. He should have been reined in.
Yeah.
To stop that.
So Wayne, you organized this, didn't you, Wayne? Like, obviously you did. Like, you
Well, yeah, I
got
had
in
questions and
contact with.
stuff. That's why I was trying to go to the next question when we were going off track, going down rabbit trails and stuff. Also, it was a problem because we had like so many people coming in and out and stuff like that. Remember, it was supposed to be between you, Fiona, Kent, and Russ. And then, when Russ couldn't make it, everybody else was like, hey, can I join? But if Russ would have came, it would have been a closed or like private hangout. It would have been broadcasted live, but it wouldn't have been as much people. But I'm actually glad that we did have this because now we know where everybody stands. Where if they did have to look at the other side, would they be willing to? So I hope everybody got a chance to see. Everybody.
I'd be honored to join another hangout like this.
Yeah, I think the bottom line was that everybody was prepared to consider the other side, except Kent Hovind.
I have a.
That's true.
My views on
just quickly.
Go ahead.
Wayne, can you organize another debate like this, but where it's a strict one? So either one-on-one, I don't mind going toe-to-toe with, or if he feels comfortable with having another younger creationist, 2-on-2, so like how you originally planned. I would love that, because at the end of the day, I don't want him having the last say and like everything is dandy at the end of the like he did not. Well, okay, I know that everyone is grown-up adults. I know that everyone can see that he didn't have anything to offer those who, like in Fiona's field and all that. But I'm frustrated that there are obviously younger creationists who will maybe look at this debate and be like, oh, you see, Ken Hovind, he won the day or something. And I'm frustrated that I have all this head knowledge that I couldn't just pick on Kent and be like, answer this,
Agreed.
So, yeah.
Yeah, next time, Wayne, if you do have this kind of thing again with anyone, have it default that people are hidden off broadcast, and only show them on broadcast when it's their time to talk, or apart from those people that are the initial ones, like Fiona and so forth. But for everyone else who just pops in, so they're automatically hidden from broadcast, just to keep everyone quiet until the question is answered. What else?
Well, we're still live. Actually, I'm about to close out.
I want to say a couple thoughts before it goes off. The first thought would be, I didn't really get a chance to show how much I really offer, but I would really love to. Next time it's possible, I would really like to be invited to something like this. I'm really enjoying these. As I said, I'm enjoying these hangouts that I've been in with various people on YouTube. That's always fun. And as a quick response to something that was said a little bit ago, I generally have a somewhat optimistic view towards other people. I generally think that, okay, if we can just organize this and we can talk, you can deal with things, but it is apparent, and it'll be more obvious when I watch the recording of the stream for what I missed when I wasn't here, is that even when you try, a lot of people are apparently just completely uncooperative. I know that there are trolls and other stuff, but I don't know. I just don't look at Ken and think he's definitely so-and-so dishonest kind of thing. I always think, okay, he's just a guy who's ignorant. I mean, everyone's ignorant on lots of things, so it's just things that you can kind of talk through and work through eventually. So it's always kind of disappointing when I guess stuff like this happens. Would have loved to be here longer and with Ken, talk and kind of progress from there, because this would have been an interesting conversation to kind of see everyone considering the other side, including myself.
Yeah, I agree. And before we close, I just want to let everybody else who's still watching right now, just you guys can be the judge, and you guys can see who here on this broadcast was actually willing to look at the other side, who wasn't, who was being cooperative, who wasn't being cooperative. And you guys can take this home, and this is recorded and document. And you guys can show your friends, and you guys can say, look at Wayne. Wayne, he wasn't willing to look at this, or so and so wasn't willing to look at that. I'm just here moderating. I'm not here to pick sides, but you guys can be the judge, and the evidence speaks for itself. So I'll see you guys later.
See ya. Oh, and for